Welcome to NewsRap Local. I'm your host, Justin Chapman. Thanks for being here. Happy Women's History Month. After providing a few brief updates on this month's local stories, we'll speak with our guest, Roman Korol, a Cal Tech grad student who has been collecting aid to send to his native Ukraine. Russia's war against Ukraine has united and galvanized the international community at a time of deep-seated divisions. But Ukrainians need more than words of solidarity. They need our help. Roman is stepping up to do something for his native country, and we'll talk to him about what he's doing and how the Pasadena community can help. But before we get started, let's check out these Pasadena Media News Briefs.
Players from the United States women's national soccer team have settled their class action equal pay lawsuit against the U.S. Soccer Federation for a total of $24 million. According to the settlement, the players will receive a lump sum payment of $22 million. This amount will be distributed in a manner proposed by the USWNT players and approved by the district court. U.S. Soccer will also pay an additional $2 million into an account to benefit the USWNT players in their post-career goals and charitable efforts related to women's and girls' soccer. The USWNT and the sport's national governing body ended a 6-year legal fight over equal pay by agreeing to the settlement and promising to equalize pay between the men's and women's national teams. The U.S. women's team has won 4 World Cups since the program's start in 1985. The U.S. men's team hasn't reached a World Cup semifinal since 1930. As part of the settlement, the women's players agreed to release the federation from all remaining claims in the team's gender discrimination lawsuit. International soccer is set to return to the Rose Bowl this September. The City Council unanimously approved the Rose Bowl Operating Committee's request for approval of license agreements with promoter Soccer United Marketing for the hosting of an international soccer match to be held once a year until 2026. The soccer match will be the 20th displacement event approved for each year from 2022 to 2026. While American football has traditionally been the breadwinner of Pasadena's Rose Bowl, there has also been a lengthy history of hosting international soccer, including the finals of both the men's and women's World Cups, as well as the Copa America in June of 2016. The agreement is expected to attract as many as 80,000 fans to the Rose Bowl in September and bring in a net revenue of $300,000 during the first 5 matchups scheduled through 2026. Rose Bowl CEO and General Manager Darryl Dunn announced Thursday his intent to retire on June 30th. During his tenure, the Rose Bowl Stadium has hosted 4 college football national championship games, 3 semifinal championship games, several annual Rose Bowl games, the 1994 men's and 1999 women's World Cup finals, Copa America matches, and many high-profile concerts. One of Dunn's greatest accomplishments was the creation of the Rose Bowl Legacy Foundation, the venue's nonprofit fundraising arm. To date, the foundation has raised more than $50 million to support the Rose Bowl Stadium. After 27 years of working at the iconic stadium, Dunn said that it was with mixed emotions that he tendered his resignation, and said, "Being a part of the Rose Bowl and Pasadena team has been the most incredible opportunity of my career, and has shaped my journey in so many ways." The Rose Bowl Operating Company will immediately begin a search to identify Darryl's successor, under the direction of an ad hoc committee of the RBOC Board of Directors.
Let's turn next to our lightning round of news updates. 1. The nomination period for candidates for City Council Districts 3, 5, and 7 is now closed. In District 3, Human Relations Commission Chair Brandon Lamar will face off against incumbent John Kennedy. In District 5, incumbent Jess Rivas is running unopposed. In District 7, where incumbent Andy Wilson is not running for re-election, candidates Jason Lyon, Siren Hajian, and Alan Shea have pulled papers to run. All of these candidates have qualified for the June 7th ballot. 2, the PUSD Board of Education has approved the School District Redistricting Commission's map that defines the boundaries for each voting district for the next decade, based on data from the recent 2020 census. 2 board members voted against it, claiming that the new map could disenfranchise thousands of voters. The new map moves nearly 20,000 voters from one district to another. It now goes to the LA County Committee on School District Organization for final approval. 3, the mask mandates are gone, but masks are still strongly encouraged, especially for unvaccinated people indoors. PUSD dropped its mask mandate on March 14th, but many students and teachers are still choosing to mask up and are concerned about the change, especially with a surge in cases happening in China and Europe. United Teachers of Pasadena President Allison Steps asked the PUSD board to keep mask mandates in place until after spring break. 4, the Pasadena City Council approved Mayor Gordo's recommendation for a new early childhood development and early learning task force, which will review the status of the early child development policy adopted by the council 7 years ago. The task force will consist of early childhood and early learning experts, practitioners and advocates, leadership and early childhood staff of PUSD, parents of young children from PUSD, child care professionals, brain science experts, and workforce, public health, and maternal care leaders. 5, the Civilian Police Oversight Commission will work with a city council ad hoc committee and be involved in the selection process to find a new independent police auditor to replace Brian Maxey, who recently resigned and returned to Seattle. District 6 Councilmember Steve Madison is also reviewing applications to replace his original appointee, Patricia Kanaga, who also recently resigned. 6, Rick Gould, Executive Director of the One Arroyo Foundation, told the city's Recreation and Parks Commission recently that the plan to improve the trails in the Arroyo Seco was delayed due to the pandemic. A preliminary plan for the Parker Mayberry Bridge and other One Arroyo Trail demonstration projects are in the preliminary environmental review process, which is expected to be completed early next month. The construction cost for the projects is estimated at $2.4 million. 7, supporters of the rent control and just cause eviction protection ballot measure demonstrated in Northwest Pasadena recently. The Pasadena Tenant Justice Coalition has launched a campaign to collect 13,366 signatures by the March 28th deadline to qualify the measure for the upcoming election. The coalition survey showed that 62% of Pasadena households are renters, and 49% of those renters spend over 30% of their income on rent. The measure would cap annual rent increases at 2 to 3% and establish a new rental housing board. City Council member Jess Rivas has endorsed the campaign. Petition organizers who believe they already have enough signatures but are continuing the campaign will hold a press conference on March 28th and walk the boxes of signatures up to the city clerk's office. 8, California Attorney General Rob Bonta said that Pasadena has violated Senate Bill 9, a new housing law, when the city council passed an urgency ordinance into SB 9 allows single-family residential properties to subdivide into 2 lots without discretionary review. The city's ordinance, among other things, prohibits the application of SB 9 to landmark districts in the city. The Attorney General said the city should repeal and/or amend the ordinance within 30 days. In a strongly worded letter to Mayor Gordo, he wrote, quote, "Pasadena's urgency ordinance undermines SB 9 and denies residents the opportunity to create sorely needed additional housing. This is disappointing and, more importantly, violates state law. Right now, California is facing a housing crisis of epic proportions, and it's going to take all of us doing our part to alleviate its worst effects. I urge cities to take seriously their obligations under state housing laws. If you don't, we will hold you accountable," end quote. The mayor said the city is reviewing the letter. 9, Art Center College of Design's Board of Trustees announced that educator and industrial designer Karen Hoffman has been selected as the college's next president and chief executive officer. Hoffman, an Art Center alumna, is the 6th president and first woman to hold the position in the 90-plus year history of the college. And 10, the second of 2 virtual community meetings hosted by Mayor Gordo's Housing Task Force will take place from 6 to 8 p.m. on March 30th. The workshops will be an opportunity for the public to weigh in on the future of housing and growth in Pasadena. Let's patch in our guest, Roman Korol. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Justin.
Roman is a theoretical chemist and a fourth-year graduate student at Caltech, working in the lab of chemistry professor Tom Miller. His research is focused on modeling the behavior of atoms and molecules in complicated systems. Korol is from Lutsk, Ukraine, and felt compelled to help when Russia launched its multi-pronged attack on Ukraine 3 weeks ago. So, Roman, can you start by telling us about your background? When did you come to the U.S.? What are you studying at Caltech?
Yeah, I came to the US in 2018 to join Caltech to be a graduate student here. Like you said, I'm a theoretical chemist, which means I study how atoms and molecules behave, but I do it on a computer. So instead of running experiments like everybody imagines, pouring liquids into flasks and heating stuff up and maybe having explosions of fires, I do everything computationally. So yeah, I just launch a software program and code, add a little bit of code and try to understand how our models of the world, of the universe, can explain how matter behaves. Mm-hmm. So some molecules that I've worked on are methane, the natural gas that people use to heat houses, as well as the stove, or even vehicles drive with it. Also, we're looking at properties of water, which we know very well, but don't really understand as well as we would like to.
Mm-hmm. And you have family back in Ukraine, right?
Yeah, my wife and my kid are here, but everybody else, my parents, my grandparents, my aunts and uncles, all of my extended family, they all have been in Ukraine when the war started, and some of them have now been able to flee to Poland.
Wow. Well, I hope everyone's safe. Can you give us a quick debrief on why this is happening and what this has been like for you in particular, and what drove you to then take action?
Yeah, Ukraine has been the focus of the news recently, so I'm pretty sure people know a little bit about this. But basically, the situation is as follows: Ukraine is a former Soviet republic and has historically had strong ties to Russia in a sense, right? It was occupied by Russia for a long time, or others would say it was part of the Soviet Union villainly. But at the moment, we see that Ukrainian people actually for the last 10 years have been turning away from the sphere of Russian influence and trying to build their own destiny, build their own country, and do it in a sovereign and democratic way. As we know, that's not as easy to do in Russia. It turns out it's not as easy to do in Ukraine either, because of the same problem. The authoritarian leader who wants to keep people subjugated and who wants to have its power. We all know who that is. It's Mr. Putin, who is now standing in the way of the entire country of 40 million people, people's wish to continue to be sovereign and independent. Mm-hmm. So I mean, the news have been coming out recently, but the war actually has been happening for an entire 8 years now, since the annexation of the Crimean Peninsula, one of the autonomous regions in Ukraine, by Russia. That was back in 2014.
So you just felt compelled to help, and you started collecting aid to send to Ukraine, right?
Yeah, when the news broke, I mean, we were expecting this attack. There has been warnings from NATO countries and just general Ukrainian intelligence. Everybody was getting ready for the invasion. I mean, there were hundreds of thousands of troops at the border. What are they going to do there? Play golf? Of course, everybody expected something. But me personally, I to the last second, I thought it was a bluff. It was a show of force. It was a way to get Ukraine to agree to some crazy demands. Nonetheless, Kremlin decided to invade. And yeah, like I said, I was in disbelief at first, and then after shock, I decided I might want to go there, go back to Ukraine, and then help there. Now it's not as easy for me. I have a 3 months old son. I have my wife who relies on me financially here in the U.S. and not just financially, right? Like bringing up an infant is a job for two. So I couldn't really, throw it all away and then just go there. So what I decided to do instead is to start talking about Ukraine, start asking friends and family and even strangers to reach out to the government officials, to donate money, to support Ukraine. And one of the efforts that I am spearheading is the collection of humanitarian aid from Caltech community, from on campus, from my university, and also from my neighborhood. I live in La Cañada, and people have been reaching out. I've got maybe already over 100 people who reached out to me and asked what they can do, how they can contribute, and so on. So that's been a huge success. It's been absorbing a lot of time, but I'm happy to manage this effort. I think I feel much better actually personally getting involved and knowing that I'm doing something for my homeland.
And what kind of aid is it, and how do you ship it to Ukraine?
Yeah, so at the moment they're collecting medicine, medical supplies. They're collecting warm clothes, blankets. It's pretty cold out there. It's still around 20, 30 degrees. Winter in Ukraine or the end of winter in Ukraine. And it's also baby food, so dry formula, as well as diapers and feminine hygiene products. All of that gets sorted. So people usually bring stuff either to my home or to special donation places, which I can talk about. And then it gets sorted, either I sort it or other people who help me sort all of that. And then it gets shipped through MEEST, MEEST, which is a company specializing in shipments to Eastern Europe mostly. It's a company with Ukrainian origins. It's actually a franchise that exists all over North America, but there is a local MEEST California, and they are helping with shipments. Now the shipments are not cheap, as you can imagine. So we're collecting, mostly higher quality stuff that's really needed and urgently needed, as well as expensive things, right? So yeah, that's.
And how can Pasadenans help you? What are some other ways that people can get involved?
Yeah, so I think the best way is to vet a charity. Have a trusted charity that is that knows where to pour the money. It doesn't make sense to go and buy over-counter drugs at CVS or at some place where they'll charge 30% more than the drug can be bought in bulk. So it's best to donate money. There are a bunch of registered US charities that are involved with this effort. So one of them is Nova Ukraine, NOVA Ukraine. Another one, that one is local, almost local. It's based in San Francisco. There is a Mission for Mercy. The website is called, their website is Mercy Ukraine, all one word, .org. This charity is specifically collecting money for shipment for this MEEST company. That's one of their, if you go to donate to them on PayPal, you can select that as one of the options. There's also on the East Coast, there's RAZOM, which is RAZOM. So all three are trusted charities. I've either worked directly with them or know people who work directly with them. And all of them are working round the clock with hundreds of volunteers to make sure that the aid gets to Ukraine as soon as possible. Other things you can do if you're not financially, or if you're financially struggling, you can volunteer time. You can come help at the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, St. Andrew Orthodox Church in LA. That's a local effort. I'm sure if you're from some other city or other county, there are other local places where your help is needed. You can reach out to me, and I can direct you to the appropriate people. And of course, you can donate stuff. You can donate items that you have in your possession and don't really need, or maybe you think can be used better in Ukraine. But again, I urge you not to, go to the store and start buying stuff, because that's not as efficient as if you donated money or donated time or donated the items that already are in your possession.
Gotcha. And how can people reach out to you?
I can be reached at my email address. It's my first name, Roman, Roman @caltech.edu. Caltech as in California Institute of Technology. I think that's the best way. Then I can handle the responses.
Great. And so tell us a little bit about the partnership between the Nova Ukraine that you mentioned and the Teach for Ukraine nonprofits.
Yeah, so I actually, before the war started, I was working for almost a year on this partnership. So Nova Ukraine is in general a charity in the US that supports different projects happening in Ukraine. They've had a lot of humanitarian efforts before the war, and one of the projects that they were supporting is Teach for Ukraine, which is a wonderful program. It's a program that exists in some 54 countries, I believe. So there's Teach for Canada and Teach for USA and Teach for other countries, and in particular there's Teach for Ukraine. And the program aims to collect people who recent graduates from universities and make sure they have a path towards teaching. So basically you have an application process from recent graduates in Ukraine who want to become teachers. They weren't studying to become teachers, but they decided that they want to try. The program supports their education so that they get a master's in teaching, and it supports them with a 2-year supplement to their salary, which is actually quite good for Ukraine. It's something like doubling their salary, so that they get the real salary from the institution plus the additional support from the program. And the catch is you have to be a teacher in a small town or a village. So basically a tiny community in Ukraine where a lot of people leave from there. A lot of people who are, there's a lot of brain drain, right? That you probably see here in the US as well, from rural areas to urban areas. So these smart graduates, these leaders of thoughts, leaders of efforts are going into these communities, and the idea is to bring their spirit, bring their expertise, and make sure that they can build improvements in these small communities. So at the moment, a lot of the participants of this program that I know personally are helping with the war effort, as well as helping with the online education. So there have been a lot of programs to make sure that everybody, not just this particular school or this particular district, gets education, but everybody in Ukraine, as well as outside of Ukraine, people who fled the war can get that. And in fact, tragically, one of the young people, 21-year-old girl was killed in a shelling while she was helping with humanitarian efforts in Kharkiv, one of the heavily bombed cities. So that's Teach for Ukraine.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and telling us about your efforts. People can reach out to you at roman@caltech.edu if they want to help. Really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us about what you're doing, and I hope your family remains safe.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Justin.
Take care. Before we go, here is this month in Pasadena history. It was this month in 1886 when Pasadena incorporated as a city. It was only the second municipality in LA County at the time, after the city of Los Angeles. Then known as the Indiana Colony, 3 names for the new city were put to a vote: Indianola, Granada, and Pasadena, meaning of the valley in the Chippewa language. One of the main reasons for incorporating was to rid the city of its saloons. It's important to note and to remember that long before Europeans and Midwest Americans migrated to the Pasadena area, this land was home to the Tongva tribe for at least 10,000 years. Thank you all so much for joining me for this episode of NewsRap Local. Tune in every third Friday of the month at 5 p.m. Learn more at pasadenamedia.org and justindouglaschapman.com. Sign up for my monthly email newsletter to get updates on my work by visiting justinchapman.substack.com. See you next month.